Hello everybody, I'm Ursula, I make comics, and today I wanted to talk about color comics, and really, what should you consider when deciding whether to color your comic, or make it grayscale, or make it black and white. Here are some things you need to ask yourself. First off, let's talk about some pros and cons here. So, the pros of a colored comic are that, and this is a big one, colored comics gain more attention than black and white comics do. Obviously, this is mostly in the webcomic sphere. I'm not exactly sure about the print sphere, but in the webcomic sphere, having colored pages really makes things pop. It really will bring in a lot of readership. People like it. So that is a big plus for making a colored webcomic. I think some other pros is that it gives you another dimension for design work, for effects, for creating atmosphere and mood, and colored comics are really pretty. I think those are all pros for it, but there are some big cons to using color in your webcomics. One of the big ones is time. Adding color to your comic creates a lot more time sunk into each page. And some of that, if you're new to coloring techniques and things, it might take some time for learning. That's something I dealt with when I started working on 9 Point. I'd already worked on some color comics, not good ones. I guess in Sovereign, our first comic, it was in full color, and I did a lot of learning about color in general. It was one of my weak points when we first started. I was a lot more skilled, I guess, in inking, and even then, I wasn't good. I was 17. I was a baby. But I was really, really weak on color. And by working on my comic, I grew a lot, but there's definitely those growing pains that can be seen in those pages. And when we started working on our most recent comic, one of our most recent comics, The Scourge of 9 Point, where I went from doing a cell shaded, flat colored, with inking on top look, we went for a more painterly, lineless look. And I had to do a lot of study to get my art to a point where I was happy with it before I started the comic. And even then, there are growing pains. And then now, we actually have switched it so that Bones, the writer on this channel, is the colorist for 9 Point. So he had to learn the coloring stuff and ramp up in the same way that I had. So there is that. So if you are new to coloring and it's maybe not your strong point, if you're in the same situation that I was, it can take some time to learn how to do it. I think it's worth doing because like I said, having a colored comic really brings attention to it. It can really add dimension to it, but it does take some time. And then just in general, it does take a lot of time to color a comic page. Part of it is tedious, putting down the base flat colors before you add any shading, even if you're doing simple shading, even if you're doing just a flat colored look where there is no shadow or highlight, that can take time. It is just tedious work in a lot of ways. Obviously, there are plugins and tools you can use to make it faster, but it does take up more time than if you just did a black and white comic. Another con for colored comics is that if you do intend to print your comic, which a lot of people do, that is a business plan, I guess, that Bones and I have always used, where we will first publish our comic as webcomics, and then when we have enough pages, we bundle them up and print them into books, and then sell those books. We used to do it at shows. I guess we still go to shows, just not as much as before 2020. And we sell them online in our store. By the way, if you want to buy our books, link below. But anyways, that has always been a good strategy for making some money off your comics, where you publish them for free and then sell the book. A lot of people will buy the book. However, if it is a full color comic, color is a lot more expensive to print than black and white. One way that Bones and I have kind of gotten around this is in more recent years, some of our comics, namely Pretty Mouth and The Magpie, when we first published them, they were black and white, and we had full intention of only printing them in black and white and only publishing them in black and white, and that was a lot cheaper to print. we had like a vision. And then in more recent years, we decided like we should republish these like in color. It used to be just like a little dream of ours. We're like, well, what if we made like a special edition where we colored it and made like a small print run? But then we decided like, let's just color it and post it online. We fell off for a little bit with making comics, kind of again around 2020, where things just went on hiatus for lots of reasons. A lot of them were like emotional troubles and creative block kind of stuff that just kind of piled up with us. But we stopped really working on our comics or updating them. And so we decided when we were ready to get back in and start posting, we were like, let's post these as color comics. And it was also a way for Bones to skill up his coloring because he really wanted to become like the colorist for our comics. And so he used like coloring our comic Pretty Mouth and our comic The Magpie to skill up and then post them online and kind of reinvigorate the readership. So with doing that, I think we do still have intentions of one day doing like a print run of the color versions of our comic pages, but we currently sell the books as the original black and white version, but if you want to read it in color, then it is available online. So that is also possible to do. You could have a black and white version and a color version, and you post one and print the other, but it is still important to consider the printing costs if you do have intentions of printing. So I think those are the two big downsides of using color: the printing cost and the time cost of putting it in. So some of you may be thinking like, well, I still want like a rendered comic or a detailed comic, but I don't want to put in the color stuff for like the cost reasons, like I want to print, or color just doesn't suit it, etc. And you're thinking of doing like a grayscale comic where there's still different values, it's not just black and white. Maybe you're thinking of using screen tones or just, grayscale shading kind of thing. That one's great again if you want to print, because black and white or grayscale where you're just using black ink instead of any colored inks will save you money. That is like totally affordable to print. I think that's a great solution for that problem. However, I think you still run into the same issue as you would if you did like a full color comic. There might be less dimensions to worry about because you don't have to worry about like the hues that you're working with. It's all just, monochromatic. But you still would have that time sink of putting down your screen tones, filling in like your grayscale stuff, or rendering out shapes. And again, if that's the style you want to use, that is totally cool. There are lots of really wonderful comics that are grayscale with shading. I think stylistically it can be really, really beautiful and really cool. Obviously, like I'm a fan of like manga, where most of them are black and white with some screen tones, or it is even becoming more common that they are like grayscale painted, and I like a lot of them. I think they're really pretty. I don't think you'll get the same attention as you would if you did a full color comic, but that's the same issue as like pure black and white with no grayscale. And I guess along those lines, the same issues apply to if you did just black and white. Let's say you did just black and white. I would consider it to be like just black and white if it's like just black ink on white paper and there's like minimal grayscale, because I definitely consider some of our comics, The Magpie and Pretty Mouth, like I tried for those stylistically really hard to not put grayscale in. However, there are times where it was needed. Just sometimes I needed to add like a little bit more depth with like a gray shadow. And we also had dark-skinned characters where I wanted to make sure it was readable that they had dark skin, so I used a gray tone instead of just leaving their skin white or trying to like shade in with black. So I think if it's very limited, I would still consider that like pure black and white. I also personally, in my opinion, I guess it depends on the screen tone, but a lot of screen tones are technically like pure black and white because it's black dots on white, and how tightly those dots are creates the look of like a grayscale. But obviously there are some tones that are like gray. So I don't know, is that a hot take? Fight me. And again, same pros and cons. Well, no, it takes less time to do like a very minimal black and white style, where if you're mostly just putting down inks, you're probably doing some cross hatching and using lines for shading. That does take time, but it is not nearly as much time as it takes to like flat color or fill in large spaces with like detailed rendered grayscale stuff. And again, I guess it depends on how detailed your style is. If you're someone who uses like highly detailed rendering line art where there is like every shape is modeled and crosshatched and highly defined in your ink work, I think that would take a long time. But if you have something that is a lot more simplified, it would take a lot less time. And the same thing would apply to color or like a more detailed grayscale image, where if you have a more simple style or you're using less colors, you're not rendering things fully out and looking very like realistic or painterly or, you know, highly rendered. The more simplified it is, the less time it will take, obviously. So even though I think overall color will take more time, the more you simplify it, the less time it takes. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't think any decision on that is better or worse than the other. I know that probably doesn't help with decision making, but I think when you are working on a comic, it is always a labor of love. It is very rarely like a get rich quick thing or like a get popular quick thing. It's something that takes a lot of time, and I think you should just make stylistic decisions that you think suit your story or suit your work schedule or suit yourself stylistically. Like, what do you like? So if you've been sitting there not sure if you should make your comic color because you really don't like working in color, I don't think you have to. I did say a lot at the start that color will get you a lot of attention, but you can also do some little tricks like having color illustrations for promo art for your covers. You can even do like the starts of chapters are in color, and then it becomes like a grayscale or black and white version in your normal style that you've chosen for your comic, which will bring people in, and then you don't have to fully commit to full color all the time. But yeah, there's no wrong decision. It really just depends on you and your project. Hopefully this helped some people make a decision about what they're gonna do with their comic, and let me know if you have any questions about art and comics. Anything. If you leave it in the comments, I will read through it and hopefully make a video soon that can help you. If you are looking to chat comics and art and creative stuff, check out our Discord. It is linked below. It is full of other artists and writers and creatives, and everyone is super, super nice, and I would love to see you there. Alrighty, take care everybody. Goodbye!